Hello there. I've got a big fat stack of rock albums here that I wanted to go through just to show you guys some selections from my collection. I thought it would be a nice video, so without further ado, let's just get started. We're starting off with Disraeli Gears by Cream. Cream was one of the first really big rock super groups. Eric Clapton's band. He played guitar and did vocals as well. This was their second album, and it's a great album, a very classic album. It's got such tunes as Strange Brew, Sunshine of Your Love. It's got a really cool cover as well, and some really nice music. So here you can see some of the band members as well as this cool eye looking at you. And there's the cover. So that's Cream Disraeli Gears. Next we just have a sort of a compilation of Buddy Holly tunes. Buddy Holly Lives. I remember I bought this album a long time ago when Tower Records was still open on West 4th Street. This was like my first introduction to Chuck Berry, and I've loved him ever since, really. Another just sort of compilation record, and all of these songs are classics. And what can you say about Chuck Berry? He's one of the fathers of rock and roll. Here's Little Richard, and what else can you say about this man? Another one of the pioneers of rock and roll. Another big influence on the Beatles as well, who covered many of his tunes. This album I had since my childhood, The Beatles: A Hard Day's Night, and great film, great score by the Beatles. Here's a Beatles White Album. As you can see, this is original pressing with the raised letters and a serial number on it as well. So this is an original Beatles White Album, not the reissue. Okay, so here we've got the poster. I'm holding it up. Picture of John and George, Paul down here. Got a lot of great tracks on it. Kind of a famous album. Next we've got Hey Jude by the Beatles, also with a ton of tunes. I was always a Beatles fan from when I was a little kid. And we've got all these great tunes. Hey Jude, Revolution, Paperback Writer, I Should Have Known Better, Lady Madonna, Can't Buy Me Love, Don't Let Me Down, Ballad of John and Yoko, Rain, Old Brown Shoe. So awesome record by the Beatles. What can you say about this album, Abbey Road? One of the greatest rock albums ever made, a towering example of Western music, a milestone in Western music, and a real classic. You know, you've got the cover here where the Beatles are walking across the street. This is just a great album. Side 1 is awesome, and side 2 is just a sonic masterpiece, with one song just going right into the other. Side 2 is like one song really, but it's made out of all these tunes. Here Comes the Sun, Because, You Never Give Me Your Money, Sun King, Mean Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window, Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End. Just a masterpiece in rock. So there you got that. Next we've got the first Stooges album. What can you say about Iggy Pop? He was a real original. Of course, he's considered the godfather or grandfather of punk rock, and influenced many bands like the Ramones and so many others. Was a real influence also to David Bowie and other people. You know, America was an interesting place back then. The Vietnam War was happening. You know, there were hippies and stuff, and this was real sort of a different take on the whole things. The Stooges were actually very influenced by the Doors. There you've got the Ashton brothers on the cover as well. Here's the back. It's got such songs as 1969, I Want to Be Your Dog, No Fun, Real Cool Time, and not right, little doll. Really kind of a unique voice Iggy Pop was. Speaking of David Bowie, we've got David Bowie's first breakthrough album. Actually, it's not his first album, but it is his breakthrough album, Space Oddity. That song really was what propelled him into the limelight. And this was, it's got other tunes on here that are good too. He was still sort of like, it's a little bit of folk rock actually, some of the other tunes, but I like the whole album actually a lot. I think that he had a lot of big Dylan influence, but you can see that he's already sort of glam, or it is starting towards the glam. This was David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust album, which kind of propelled him into the real big time. This was a breakthrough album for him, where he invented this character of Ziggy Stardust, and he did a lot of concerts as Ziggy Stardust, and eventually he retired that character. But this is the album that started the whole Ziggy Stardust craze, and this is a great album. I mean, every song on this is practically a classic. 5 Years, Soul Love, Moon Age Daydream, Starman, It Ain't Easy, Lady Stardust, Star, Hang On To Yourself, Ziggy Stardust, Suffragette City, and Rock and Roll Suicide. Pinups was a David Bowie record that just featured him doing covers of a lot of songs that he liked. An album of covers by David Bowie, Pinups. This was a great album, Low, another David Bowie album. David Bowie spent some time in Berlin. He made 3 albums known as the Berlin Trilogy. This was the first, I believe. And after this came Heroes. But this actually starts really David Bowie into something else. You know, like, this was like kind of like art rock. It's got tunes such as Speed of Life, Breaking Glass, What in the World, Sound and Vision, great tune, Always Crashing in the Same Car, Be My Wife. I think he wanted to get married around that time, so he wrote that song. A New Career in a New Town. Side B is more experimental. You know, if you're into art music and experimental music, you know, it's definitely a good listen. The first in the Berlin Trilogy by David Bowie. This is the 3rd album of the Berlin Trilogy. Obviously, I'm missing the one in between, which is Heroes. Very popular album. This one is called Lodger, and it's a gatefold album. You can see, and it's got some, oops, seems to be upside down, this album. Kind of hard to know which side is the right side. But there you've got David Bowie. I've seen the photo shoot for this, it's kind of unusual. There, actually, you can see them putting makeup on him. You've got like other pictures here of corpses. I believe this had something to do with the death of his brother, these photographs. Fantastic Voyage, American Night Flight, Move On, Yassassin, Red Sails, DJ, Look Back in Anger, Boys Keep Swinging, Repetition, Red Money. This is a very enjoyable listen, this whole album, all the way through as well. So, recommended. This was a big album in its day. Scary Monsters. Had a lot of good tunes on it as well. 2 singles from it, I believe, were Ashes to Ashes and Fashion. Those were the big ones, but It's No Game, Up the Hill Backwards, Scary Monsters, Teenage Wildlife, Scream Like a Baby, Kingdom Come, Before You're Young, It's No Game Part 2. Really, really good album. The video for this album won a lot of awards too. It was considered breakthrough for its time. I'm not crazy about the video, but it was a really big video. This was during the days of MTV, and And this is very listenable all the way through as well. Very, very good album. Roxy's Musics. This is Avalon by Roxy Music. Brian Ferry. What can you say about Brian Ferry? A man of exquisite tastes. Always very well dressed. He's a class act. I mean, Brian Ferry is one class act. And so much grace and elegance in the man. I had the first two Roxy albums, Do the Strand or whatever, when Eno was still in the band. This is obviously a later album. I believe this is one of their later albums before he went solo. And this album, I don't know what they did to it, but I don't know how they engineered it, but this album sounds amazing. I mean, the engineering and the mixing, just the drums, the guitars. I mean, I don't know who mixed or engineered this album, but it just sounds fantastic if you throw it on a nice system. It always does. I always pull this record out to test a new pair of speakers or some kind of audio equipment because it sounds that good. I've always liked this album, Avalon. Brian Ferry and Roxy Music. Cool cover too. Next we got a few albums by Pink Floyd. So after Syd Barrett lost his mind, basically, Pink Floyd just didn't have a songwriter. I think that Pink Floyd, without a primary songwriter, were kind of like floundering, and they were searching. So this album, I would say, is a very interesting album, actually. If you're into experimental stuff, you got to give them credit for like having, the wherewithal to make such an experimental album. So all I've got to say is that it's an interesting album. Here's a shot of some of the players. Yeah, I just think that they were like, what do we do now? Next, right following from Omagama came Adam Hart Mother. This is also, once again, you got to give him credit for trying. And it's an interesting listen. Some people really like these two albums and don't even like the later stuff. Well, what's interesting in these albums, now that I'm thinking about it, is you can start to see the new Pink Floyd, the post-Syd Barrett Pink Floyd that became so popular starting with Dark Side of the Moon. You could really start to see it form. Metal was the next album, and here I've heard, for example, David Gilmour, the guitar player, say this is really where Pink Floyd became Pink Floyd. This is a good album. It's got some good songs on it. Here's again a shot of the band: Waters, Mason, Gilmour, Wright, and it's got its moments for sure. Some good songs written for this album. The last track, Echoes, has some fantastic moments. You can really see the Pink Floyd sound really starting to emerge there. It goes on a bit long, actually, and once again there's this long section where it goes into its experimental stages, but they're getting their act together here and getting ready for what's to come. And what's to come really is this next album here, Dark Side of the Moon. This is in good shape. The vinyl's in good shape. Cover is a little worn, but not too bad. And here, this album, what can you say about this album? It's one of the biggest selling albums of all time. It's a milestone in rock music. It's got superbly engineered by Alan Parsons, and it's, David Gilmour's guitar work starts really to be, great after this. In this record, he really got his chops down for this. So I would say that this record really was the beginning of Pink Floyd's mature later period, after a period of searching for who they were after the demise of Syd Barrett. Next is a record from a Scottish punk band called the Undertones, or maybe they're Irish, I'm not sure. In any case, they were a punk band from the 80s. Good stuff. I really, I like their work. And this is a really good album. It's got a lot of cool tunes on it, actually. I won't read the track list now. It was loaned to me from a friend of mine in high school, and I never gave it back to him. It's not that I was trying to keep it, I just kind of forgot that I had it. And this is many, many years later. If you're watching this, I forgot your name too. I'll be happy to give you back your record. So if you're watching this, just leave a comment and I'll give you back your record, man. Sorry. And then of course we've got this record, The Clash. Great punk album. Such great tunes on it as well. This was one of their breakthrough albums from the time. All great tracks. All very listenable from beginning. This album is just like, wow. Elvis Costello and the Attractions. Yeah, happen to have this. Kind of from the punk era as well. What can you say about this band? This album is just a compilation of their tunes. One of the greatest American bands that ever was and ever will be, The Doors. I got this record from the record store that I made a little video of on my channel called Secondhand Rose Music. Got it a while ago, Steely Dan's Greatest Hits. Didn't really have a lot of Steely Dan and wanted to check out their stuff, so I picked this thing up, and it's got such a good track list here. And it's an awesome record, man. These guys were good. These guys could write songs. Love this stuff. It's kind of like jazzy rock, actually. Great album. This album was featured in a recent video, actually, of an amazing thrift store vinyl haul. Just happens to be in this stack. The Police, Zenyatta Mondatta. Police were a good band. This was their early album here, which has got a lot of cool tunes in it. Outlandos d'Amour, Synchronicity. The Best of Wilson Pickett. He's a classic. This is The Best of Wilson Pickett, Volume 2. It's got all these tracks. Another Police album, Regatta de Blanc. This is an album that I actually like by Bruce Springsteen, and I do like Bruce Springsteen. He's pretty good. This album is quite good, actually. Thunder Road, 10th Avenue Freeze Out, Night, Backstreets, Born to Run, and so on and so forth. This is a classic album by him. The one after that was also in that vinyl haul, The River, and this is also a nice collection and a big seller for him as well. And I wasn't a big fan of Bruce Springsteen. I liked the early stuff. The later stuff kind of was like a little like blue collar for me. It's like wasn't really such a big fan, but he was part of like the music scene in New York, and I do like the early stuff. This is the Pretenders' second album that has, Talk of the Town on it, Pretenders 2. Pretenders were a good band from the 80s. I would even say a very good or maybe a great band from the 80s. Chrissie Hynde, of course, is a iconic female rock and roll artist. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this stack of records from my collection. If you like this video, please press like and subscribe for more videos. Thanks and have a great day.